Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Innal hamdalillah nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruh wa na'udzu min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. Man yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa man yudlil fala hadiya lahu. Wa asyhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la syarika lah wa asyhadu anna Muhammadan 'abduhu wa rasuluh. Amma ba'd. Tonight inshallah we shall be talking about the manners of visiting. In fact, this particular topic should have been done last month, but I missed it without realizing. So I was pointed out by one of the sisters after the talk last month. So I said, inshallah, we'll do this month. Huh? Tak kuat. Okay. So, before we visit normally or naturally, what do we do? Before we visit anybody, whether it be our parents, our elders, our relatives, our friends, whatever, normally today we would call first, right? We would call first, make sure that the person is at home so that we can visit conveniently. And what it means is that when we call, we ask whether the person will be at home at a certain time. That means we are making a contract. We are making an appointment. Actually, it is a contract between us, the person the visitor, and the host. So there are two parties here. You have the visitor and the host. So it is actually a contract. An appointment is actually a contract between two parties which must be fulfilled. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Holy Quran in Al-Ma'idah verse number 1, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu awfu bil'uqud. O you who believe, fulfill all your promises. Fulfill your promises. Awfu bil'uqud. It is fi'l amr. In other words, it is a command. It is not you are encouraged to. No. Awfu bil'uqud, meaning you are commanded to fulfill your promises. So when you call to say that I am coming inshallah at certain time, that means I am giving my word. I am giving a promise to the person who receives the call, who then says yes, what happened? Who then says yes, I agree or I accept. It's okay. Yeah. So okay. So what it means is that it is a promise that you have already made. It is a contract. Allah says, "Awfu bil uqud." Fulfill all your promises. That's number one. Secondly, if you look at Surah Maryam, verse 54, Allah says, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, Wadhkur fil kitabi Ismail, innahu kana sadiqal wa'd, wa kana rasulan wa nabiyya. Wadhkur fil kitabi Ismail. Remember in the book about Ismail, the story of Ismail in the book. Remember, wadhkur. Remember about the story of Ismail in the book, in other words, in the Holy Quran. Innahu kana sadiqal wa'd. Verily he was a person true to his promises. True to his promises. In other words, he doesn't break his promises. Sadiqal wa'd. Wa kana rasulan wa nabiyya. And he is also a prophet and a messenger and a prophet, right? Rasulan wa nabiyya. So Allah has praised Ismail for keeping his promises. Again, it is from the Quran to say that we have to fulfill our promises. So making an appointment to visit someone is actually a promise which we have to do. In fact, according to certain tafsir, if you look at Awfu bil Uqud, it is a very, very important verse. which is equivalent to a paragraph. It is not just one particular verse, but it is equivalent to a paragraph. You can write books about it. According to a very important tafsir, he says we can write books about it, which means it is a very important verse in the Holy Quran. And why is it necessary for us to keep our promises when we make, even to visit a person? Because the person who has received your gesture to visit, right, has already allocated the time for you. He has definitely made time for you. He has postponed all other schedules. He used that time for you. So the moment you break the promise, the moment you do not fulfill that promise, you are creating problem for him, because you are wasting his time. And time is so precious to us. We don't realize this. Time is a makhluk. Time is a creation of Allah. Time itself is a creation of Allah. And Allah says in the Holy Quran, wal asr innal insana lafi khusr. By time, al-asr has two meanings. One is time in the sense of afternoon, asr. The other one is a long time, over time, right? Well, asr means over time. Everyone will be in a loss. Innal insana lafi khusr. Innal insana lafi khusr. In other words, everyone will be in a loss. Why? Because can you get 3rd of May, 8:31 of 2017 again? Tomorrow, can you get 3rd of May 2017 at 8:31 p.m.? No more. 8:31 p.m. of 3rd of May is past. 2nd of May is past. What will come is 4th of May. The moment you pass the time, you have lost it. You cannot go back to it. So time is something that will, that will actually destroy all matter, all materials. Time will destroy all materials. What does it mean? Over time, everything will be destroyed. Over time, all men will die. Over time, buildings will fall. Over time, trees will die. Over time, every material, every matter will be destroyed. Over time. It's a matter of short and long. Right? So time is something that is so useful for us that we should not waste at any moment. Right? So that is why when you make a promise, make sure you fulfill the promise, because that time has been allocated for you. And if you do not come, if you do not fulfill that promise, you are wasting his time as well as your time. There was a companion of the Prophet ﷺ who promised that he will come and see the Prophet. He did not turn up until 3 days. So when he turned up 3 days later, the Prophet ﷺ told him, you have created some problem for me. You have created some problem for me, because for the last 3 days I've been waiting for you. Of course, during those days, it was impossible for him, for example, to inform the Prophet that he couldn't make it. Maybe he has a good reason. But unfortunately, the situation was such that there are so many constraints. There is no telephone, there is no telegram, nothing. Right? So there is no possibility of him informing. He might have a good excuse, but still, the Prophet said, you have caused me some problem, which means it is no good. Right? So, the Prophet ﷺ said, never make a promise if you do not intend to keep it. Why? It is tantamount to lying. It is tantamount to hypocrisy. The hadith which says that there are 3 traits of hypocrisy. Number 1, when he speaks, he lies. Number 2, when he promises, he breaks it. Number 3, when he is entrusted with anything, he will betray the trust. So any one of these 3 implies lying or hypocrisy. In Ihya al-Muddin, Imam Ghazali says, the person whose intention is not to fulfill the promise belongs to this category. But if one who has the excuse, the real reason, of course, does not belong to this category, right? So, in other words, when we make a promise, if we can't do it, if we can't fulfill it, make sure you inform beforehand, inform in advance, so that you do not inconvenience the person, right? The second topic says the declining of a visit. The first part was keeping appointments. The second one is declining a visit. In other words, what happens if you visit someone and that someone says, I'm sorry, I cannot receive you now. You have to go home. Is that possible? It is possible. If you go to a friend, you go and visit a friend without informing him, right? Without any appointment, you just go and visit him. When you reach the house, he tells you, please go home. Please go home. He doesn't even have to explain why. You don't have to ask why. Or rather, you don't have the right to ask why. He doesn't have to explain, you don't have the right to ask why. He may have certain important things that he wants to do. Or he may be facing some difficulties. Or he may be very inconvenient if you come. And so on and so forth, right? So, you do not ask for any explanation, but you just go. Why? The Quran says so. In Surah An-Nur, verses 27 and 28, it says, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, Ya ayyuhalladzina amanu la tadkhulu buyutan ghaira buyutikum hatta tasta'nisu wa tusallimu ala ahliha. That's the first verse. O you who believe, do not enter a house which is not yours. In other words, do not enter your own house or somebody else's house, right? Until you have got the permission and you make salam to the occupants of the house. Never enter a house without permission and without salam. That's the Quran. Second verse, he says, فَإِن لَمْ تَجِدُوا فِيهَا أَحَدًا فَلَا تَدْخُلُوهَا حَتَّى يُؤْذَنَ لَكُمْ وَإِن قِيلَ لَكُمُ ارْجِعُوا فَارْجِعُوا هُوَ أَزْكَى لَكُمْ وَاللَّهُ بِمَا تَعْمَلُونَ عَلِيمٌ. What does it mean? فَإِن لَمْ تَجِدُوا فِيهَا أَحَدًا. If you find that there is no one there, there is no one in the house, right? فَلَا تَدْخُلُوهَا. Do not enter until you get your permission. حَتَّى يُؤْذَنَ لَكُمْ. Until you have the permission. وَإِن قِيلَ لَكُمْ. And if it is told to you, فَارْجِعُوا. Go back. فَارْجِعُوا. وَإِن قِيلَ لَكُمْ أَرْجِعُوا. In other words, go. فَارْجِعُوا. Then you have to go. Alright? فَارْجِعُوا هُوَ أَزْكَى لَكُمْ. That is better for you. That is more purified for you. هُوَ أَزْكَى لَكُمْ. In other words, if you just go without asking him why, without demanding any explanation, and so on and so forth, that's better for you. It's purifying you. It is a good manners. Don't ask. So this is the Quranic solution. When someone cannot receive a guest at any time, he just tells you, go. Don't wait here. Just go. And you don't have any excuse or any right to stay and say, no, I want to go in. No way. Right?
This is without any appointment.
Without any appointment. Or with appointment is different. With appointment is different. Right? Then he must explain. But without appointment, no. Just go. Right?
Yeah, but the previous era, the previous time, there was no appointment. You just go sometimes.
Exactly. Nowadays, you call first. Yeah. Those days they never call because they don't have any phone. Alright. Now, this particular etiquette, this particular manner of behaving, right, is Quranic. So there is no other explanation as far as I can see. It is Quranic. In other words, it is from the Quran. Yeah? وَإِنْ قِيلَ لَكُمْ إِرْجِعُوا فَارْجِعُوا. If he says go, go. Yeah? Don't wait. Alright? That's one etiquette. The other one is controlling your eyes. What is it that you can see? What is it that you cannot see? Right? When asking permission to enter a home, don't start looking around at places that you are not supposed to see or that you wouldn't like to see. Right? Don't become busybody. Right? There are people who will ask you, when you went there, what did he serve you? Fine. What clothes did he wear? What color? What songko? No need lah. Right? So you don't have to look at everything. Make sure that you don't. Why? Because if you do, you will be responsible to answer why you do in the hereafter. That's how serious it is. You're supposed to answer why you do that. Right? Because in the Quran it says, there's another verse which says, Innal ahda, where is it? In Surah Isra, yeah? Wa awfu bil ahd, innal ahda kana mas'ula. Right? Wa awfu bil ahd. In other words, you must fulfill all engagements. Right? Innal ahda kana mas'ula. Every engagement will be subject for questioning in the hereafter. When you engage with a person, right, then you will be asked later on why you engage with the person. So if it is a good engagement, it's fine. But if it is a bad engagement, then it's your responsibility. Right? So that's also very important. Now,
does that mean that we enter a house, so can we just look around there and we get beautiful house, a nice ceiling, and then
that's different. That's different. But that's fine. But if you go in and then you see that there is a closet, right? You open the closet and see what is inside. There is a bag. You open the bag and see what is inside. Well, that's not the right thing to do. And before somebody comes in, before you allow somebody to come in, you must know exactly where you can stop him or where you should allow him. You allow him only in the living room. You don't allow him to go somewhere else. You don't allow everybody to go to the kitchen or to the bedroom, right? You only allow to the living room. So make sure that the living room is presentable. You have to make sure that the living room is presentable. If they need a tissue box, then you put a tissue box. Right? So that's how it should be. In other words, when somebody is visiting you and you are giving permission for him to visit you, then you must make that visit of his a pleasant one. Should be pleasant, so that he can come back. Right? Not when somebody comes to your house, you make him so, something that is so boring that he feels he doesn't want to come anymore. You should make sure that you receive him with a good smile and you ask him for his well-being. You ask him for whatever, right? And then ask him to sit down. And when you ask him to sit down, must make sure that you want him to sit at the right place. There are certain manners again on where to sit. Okay? Right, so the first one is to control your eyes. A person should not look inside the house before getting permission. If you do look inside before asking permission, you have already entered or you have already trespassed. If you haven't got any permission, you go into the house. That means you look into the house. You haven't gone in. Just look into the house before you get permission. It's already trespassing according to the hadith. And that's how serious it is. Okay. These things we do not know until we read these things. We think everything is okay, especially when it is your own parents' house or anything like that. No, it's not like that. Abu Hurairah, who said, the Messenger of Allah said, if the site leaves, permission should be denied. In other words, if the person who is a busybody, looking around and so on, then he should not be allowed to go in. The Prophet said, don't allow him in. As serious as that. Alright. And Umar al-Khattab says, whoever fills his eyes with the sight of the interior of a house before being permitted is a wrongdoer. Al-Bukhari and Muslim and others narrated that Sahal bin Sa'ad radiallahu anhu said that a man peeked through a hole into the room of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. A man peeked through a hole in the house of the Prophet. When the Prophet realized that he was peeking through the hole, he told the man, had I known that, I would have... In fact, at that time, the Prophet was actually scratching his head with something sharp. Scratching his head with something sharp. And when he found out that this man was actually peeking through the hole, he told the guy, had I known that you were doing that, I would have poked your eye. So no peeping. Alright. I would have poked your eye. Okay. Next, when you want to go into anybody's house, make sure that you remove the shoes. Before you remove your shoes, you must know which shoe to remove first. Which shoe to remove second. Right? When you want to wear your shoes, you wear your right shoe first, followed by the left. When you want to take off your shoes, you take off your left shoe first, and then only the right. Right? So, as far as the left is concerned, last out, right? First in, last out. Right? As far as the right is concerned, you got to wear first with the right, and then you take off with the left. Right? So, in this particular case, when you want to take out your shoes in front of somebody's house, make sure that you take out with the left shoe, and then your right. Now, before you even do that, your guest, your host might say, no, you can bring your shoes in. And if you are allowed to bring your shoes in, what do? Look at your shoes and see whether it is clean or dirty. If it is dirty, make sure that you wipe it first. Don't bring in dirty pair of shoes into people's house. Right? But it's better to take it out if it is dirty. Okay? So, as far as shoes is concerned. The other one is choosing a seat, and this is important. When you want to choose a seat, when you enter into a house, do you just simply sit at the most convenient chair that you find? That chair may be a most important place for somebody. If it may be the chair that the host would actually sit. So you don't just go and sit anywhere. That's number one. Wait until you are seated. When you are seated, don't argue. No, I want to sit there. No, I want to sit there. No such thing. Right? If the host says you sit there, then you sit there. Don't change. But if you are going to the restaurant, it's different. Right? You are going to the restaurant, you want to choose which particular seat. That's fine. You are paying for it. In this case, you are entering somebody's house. When you want to sit down, make sure that he points out to you which particular chair you are supposed to sit, which particular place you are supposed to sit. Right? Suppose you are coming in and you are not the only guest, and you are a very young man. right? You are the young man and you are the first to arrive. So the host may give you a very, very nice place to sit, nice chair to sit. Then other people come, what do? You have to forgo your seat if you think that you are very young. Give respect to the elders. The hadith says, elders, elders twice. Rasulullah says, the elders, which means that you have to give respect to the elders. So as a young man, you have to stand up and give that seat that you think is more important to somebody older than you, or some of the elders. Ask them to sit. It is better for you to give up on your own rather than being told to give up. If you are being told to give up, then in other words, your manners is dented, right? But if you volunteer, then you are being respected, you are being honored, right? Just like when you go into the bus or in the train or whatever, and you give a seat to elderly person and so on, it's fine, right? But even in the house, you must make sure that you do not just sit. You have to wait for the host to sit you where to sit, right? And if you are given a good seat and you know that somebody else is superior to you in terms of age, in terms of knowledge, in terms of status and so on, then you have to give up and give him the honor to sit. Okay? Rasulullah SAW once received a guest by the name of Adi ibn Hatam al-Tai. This person is actually a leader in his community. What did the Prophet do? The Prophet ﷺ took him by the hand into his house, took a cushion. He took a cushion, right, with some dead palms in it, and throw it onto the floor and ask this man to sit. That is a sign of respect for the person. So the person said, no, it's you who should sit. He said, no, I insist you should sit, because he is giving the respect to the person, because that person is of a certain stature. He's the head of his community. He's the pengulu, for example, right? Then you have to give that respect. There was another hadith where somebody came in a crowd, in a gathering of companions with the Prophet ﷺ, and the companions were seated very close to the Prophet, and there was no space near the Prophet, and this man is also the leader of a community. What did the Prophet do? The Prophet took his turban and threw it at him and said, sit down on it. That's a sign of respect. Sign of respect. Right? So irrespective of whether the person is higher than you or lower than you in status, it doesn't matter. As long as he is of a certain status, you are the host, then you have to treat him well. Right? You have to treat him well because he has a certain status. Right? So that's what the Prophet did, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Similarly, if you find that two people are actually sitting down next to each other, right, you should not go and sit in between. You should not go and sit in between, because he might be talking to each other or whispering to each other, and you are in between. How could he whisper anymore? He has to stop, right? Because eavesdropping is bad. You cannot be just listening to somebody whispering. That's bad. You should not do it at all, right? So you should not sit in between the two people. Even if he offers you a seat, you should sit beside him, on his right or on his left, not in between the two. Right? Because anyone who whispers to another in the presence of a third is wrong. Right? You cannot whisper to another in the presence of a third person. No two should whisper in the presence of a third. That's a hadith. And when Abdullah ibn Umar was asked, what if there are four? He said, if there are four, it's okay. Right? If there are four, you can actually whisper among the two, because the other two can still have. But if there is only one, then that guy will feel, what's happening to me? Isn't it? Yeah.
You go just for a while only.
Yeah.
Joke. So you're not leaving him out.
Yeah.
That's a bit private joke. Then you come back to him and say that. It's alright?
No.
Still not okay.
Because according to the hadith, when the Prophet ﷺ said two, he emphasized two. The word two was emphasized, right? When there are two of you whispering in the presence of the third, two of you whispering in the presence of the third. Right? So no private joke. If you want, everybody must share. Alright? Okay. Now if you are given a seat, a place in between two persons, sometimes they allow you to sit down in between them. Yes, you can. But what happens? Don't go and sit down cross-legged. And make sure that the space becomes very small for the others. Don't sit cross-legged to that extent. In other words, we have to ensure that the environment that is being created in the presence of guests and so on must be very pleasant. If you know that there is no space, then don't go and rush and sit there. Go and find some other space. Right? But there are people who insist, no, I want to sit here, I want to sit here. No, that's wrong. That's wrong. Okay. And the Prophet ﷺ also said, do not lead prayer in someone's house unless told by the host. You go to somebody's house, right? And then when the time for prayer comes, you just go and become the imam. No, that's not the way. Unless told by the host. If you're not told by the host, don't pandai-pandai go and become imam. Right? Okay? And that's a hadith. Don't lead a prayer in someone's house unless told by the host. He says, no person shall lead another in prayer while the first, that means the host, is at his house. And no person shall sit uninvited at the favorite seat of the patron of the house. That's a hadith. No person shall sit uninvited at the favorite seat of the patron of the house, of the host. Yeah? The host definitely has his own seat. You just don't go and sit in his seat because he will be very uncomfortable. He may not scold you, but he feels very uncomfortable. Right? So don't create that discomfort to people. Right? Sometimes when you arrived, your host, out of kindness, right, will tell you to sit, we say, next to him. Right? The host will ask you to sit next to him. But when other guests come, and you realize that those other guests are senior to you in age, in knowledge, in stature, what do? You offer him that important seat, and you go away. But if you are very important as well, that's fine. You know that the other person who comes later than you is not as senior to you, right? Then it's fine. But then just because you are given a seat, irrespective of whether this guy is a big alim or not, I don't care, because I'm given this seat by the host. No, we still have to ensure that we offer the seat to somebody important. Okay. It's very, very important. That shows that you have good manners. Otherwise, it means that you don't have good manners. Okay? Now, do not be insensitive and tactless. If you refuse to give your seat to those who are considered more deserving of it by those around you, this will only indicate your lack of manners. If you entrench yourself there, that means you have less manners, and no common sense. You will become one of those referred to by the Prophet when he said, those who do not respect our elders do not belong to us. Those who do not respect the elders do not belong to us. That's a very serious hadith. Alright, very serious. If you happen to sit in the second best place and a notable person entered the room, offer the seat to him without any question. Right? For example, if your elder brother come in and you still sit there, no, allow him to sit. Right? In a gathering, some prominent person may invite you to sit next to you because he wants to advise you, he wants to talk to you, he wants to ask certain things about you, he wants to do something to you, to talk to you about. Right? So you come and sit next to him and listen to whatever he wants to do. Right? After you finish this business, go back to your seat. Don't continue to sit there because you don't deserve it. Right? So we have to realize who we are. Right? And the easiest way is to actually give your respect to the elders, because you may not know a person who is a scholar or not scholar. Because a scholar or non-scholar is very difficult to determine. Age, very easy to determine, right? You look at the hair, you look at, the skin and so on and so forth, right? So there is obvious symptoms of old age, right? There are obvious symptoms of old age, and that's the easiest. So give respect to the age, to the elders. That's the easiest, right? So you could be called to a gathering where you are the youngest. In such cases, do not sit before you are invited to do so. Do not sit if you will be crowding out others. In other words, if you fill the space and people are not allowed, people don't have space to sit, you might as well get out. Right? Maybe you have to stand somewhere or something like that. But give somebody else the seat because you are very young. So again, age. The other one is a visitor is not an inspector. A visitor is not an inspector. In other words, you are not an auditor too. Don't try to audit things. When you enter a home, whether as a visitor or an overnight guest, do not closely examine its contents as an inspector would. Limit your observation to what you need to see only. Right? There are some times when you wouldn't like to see certain things. For example, if a male goes into the room and you find there are so many clothings of females, that's not right. In other words, the host must clear the room, must clear the place, right? So that you wouldn't expose things that you wouldn't like to expose. Clear the place before the guest comes in. If the guest is going to stay overnight, then make sure that you have a room for him, a place for him to sleep, and you must show two things. Number one, show him the Qibla. Number two, show him where the bath is. So he wants to make the wudu, or he wants to wash himself, and so on and so forth. So these are two the most important things. One, show him the Qibla. Two, show him the bath. Over and above that, if possible, give him a towel. Because after washing, he needs a towel. But don't you give him a towel that has been used by you or your family members. Give a new towel, not brand new, but new means clean towel that has not been used. Right? Already washed. That. And if possible, give him a mirror too. Give him a mirror so that he can look himself. So we were talking about appearance last time, right? Appearance, when you want to meet a guest, make sure that you are properly dressed. If you're at home, somebody comes to your house, you know that somebody is coming, make sure that you dress properly. Do not come shabbily, properly. When you are coming back from traveling, make sure that you are also presentable. Right? So that's very important etiquette. Similarly, when you prepare a room for your guest to stay overnight, as I said, number one, show him where the Qibla is. Number two, show him where the bath is, where the bathroom is. Number three, give him a towel. He will need a towel, but the towel must be not used yet. Okay? Not brand new, but not used in the sense it has been washed, clean. And then give him a mirror so that he can make himself presentable by looking at the mirror. Right? Nowadays in the room you have already got mirrors and so on, right? So it's okay. And now we have fan, we have aircon and so on. So show him where the aircon switch is, where the remote is, right? And so on. So all these things must be shown, must be given. I went to one's cousin's place, and he told me that you can use the aircon and things like that, you know. So I was about to sleep, and I switched on the aircon. There was only air. There was no con. It was very warm. But I couldn't do anything because he has already gone to his room. I don't think I know which room he went to even. So I didn't want to disturb him, so I just slept. So it was difficult to sleep. So the next morning I told him, I said, you know, your aircon has only air, no con. Oh, then only he realized, you know, that he went to repair it. So in other words, you have to check. Don't assume that the aircon is working. Don't assume that the fan is working. Don't assume that the mic is working. Right? So you cannot make assumptions like that. Make sure so that people are very comfortable. The guest is very comfortable. Of course, the guest also knows that he has the right to stay not more than 3 days and nights. If he is staying in someone else's house, then he has only a limit of 3 days and nights, not more than that. So if he enjoys the first night, he wants to stay second night and third night. After that, fourth night, please go. No more. You are no more the guest, you know. Third, fourth night, you are no more guest. Get out. Right? Of course, you don't say get out. Please go. Irji'u farji'u. Right? Okay. So, as I said, a visitor is not an inspector. When you enter a home, whether as a visitor and overnight guest, do not closely examine its contents as an inspector would. Right? You go and inspect this, inspect that, you know, and then go back and make report. Right? And if you don't make report, people will ask you to report. Alright. And then the timing of the visit. Of course, you have to, you are talking about those days when there was no telephone and so on. You have to imagine what time people have meal, what time is the sleeping time, you know. People sleep early or people sleep late or people sleep during the day, right? So you must know the culture. So don't go at the wrong time. So the timing is very important. Not only that, when you go to visit, do not overstay. Right? As people in Negeri Sembilan will say, the shorter the better. So that you don't inconvenience the person. Right? The shorter the better. Right? Because you can never tell. I have seen people coming to my house, right? Happens to be my own, relative, you know. They like to overstay. Right? If it is not 1 a.m., they won't go. You know, I don't think it's good. Right? But it's difficult for us to tell, you know. Actually, we can tell. No, I think you better go. Sometimes I do. I said, excuse me, I have to go. Because tomorrow I'm going to wake up early. Right? So that made them understand, please go. Why is it that we shouldn't overstay or stay too long? First, you inconvenience the host. After making a cup of coffee, you have to make another cup. In the end, when you know that so and so is coming, you make a flask of coffee, so that you don't have to repeat making coffee. Right? You make a flask, so he can take coffee as long as he likes, or as many as he likes. Right? Then, number two, apart from that inconvenience, number two, when you have already expressed what you want to express, what you want to say, already done, what will happen? Then you start gossiping. You start talking about politics, you start talking about economics, you start talking about this and that. Finally, it becomes backbiting. Finally, it becomes something that is useless. And you know what happened? If you stay too long, and if the conversation is no more useful, the shaitan will be so actively participating with you. The shaitan will be there to participate. Without the voice, he will be whispering, right? And you will be enjoying yourself, making all these useless talks and so on. And as I said, you will be questioned later on about it. And this is the serious matter. If you're not going to be questioned, it's fine. But you are going to be questioned about it. And one of the most serious, I've been thinking about this for some time. If we have some conflict with some other individual on this earth, you do not settle it before you die. You do not settle the conflict. Maybe you owe him some money, or you say something against him, that makes him hurt, and so on and so forth, which actually requires you to ask for his forgiveness, but you have no chance to do that. You know what will happen in the hereafter? You have gone through the hisab. Allah has already, you have already accounted everything. But this little thing, little conflict that you have with individual A is not settled. You cannot go to heaven yet. You cannot go to Jalan yet. You have to settle that. How are you going to settle it in the midst of billions? Where are you going to find him? Instead of being able to go to Jannah immediately, you may have to spend 1 or 2 days finding him, just to settle, because Allah will never settle for you, because that's your own problem. You have to settle yourself. So go and find him. Maybe you take 2 days. Do you know how long is that 2 days? It's 100,000 years of this life. 100,000 years of this life. Why? For 1 day in Mahsyar is equivalent to 50,000 years. Can you imagine? This is why, as I started, time is so precious. Time should be used in a very useful manner. Do not waste the time. Do not do things that will create the stumbling block for you to enter heaven as soon as possible. Don't create that. If ever you have, you go and find a person and ask for his forgiveness. Tell him what you say, tell him what you do. It's better to do it now, because you know where he is. He's in Subang Jaya, or he's in Ampang Jaya, or he's in some other Jaya, or maybe Asia Jaya, right? You know where he is, you can at least find. Rather than wait there, you do not know whether you can find him or not. If he were to be around, still okay. But if he has already gone inside Jannah, you cannot go in. How do you do? How do you settle that? I don't know. Don't ask me, I don't know. Right? What more if he has gone into hell? Are you going to hell to find him? Maybe you have to. You know, this is the problem. And as I said, these are serious things. They are very small, but very serious. Very, very serious. So think and think and think. If ever we have done something to another person, I am sure we have. I am sure we have. If I mention one name, everybody will agree that we have done it. Right? Just mention a name, I know. We have done it. Can we go, all of us, probably all of us go and see the person and say, please forgive us. Right? I think we have to do that, you know. It's so serious. So that is why we have to ensure that this life is a comfortable life. This life, you are comfortable not only for yourself, but you make others comfortable. Even if when he visits you, make it comfortable for him, so that he makes dua for you. He may be able to help you if you do not know. Of those who have died, some of them have made so much sins on this earth, but because of the prayers of those alive for them, Allahumma ghafir lil mu'minina wal mu'minat wal muslimina wal muslimat, we say that all the time. That is asking for forgiveness for those people, including those who have already died. And the dua of the living for those who die is always mustajab. Always. And these people whom we have made dua for all this while may emerge at the end clean. May emerge clean. And we hope others will also make dua for us. We hope that. How can you hope for others to make dua for us if we do not create comfort for them? If we do not make it pleasant for them to be with us? Right? So this is to me, this is the takeaway. What else? Now the host duties and the guest rights, I think I have touched that. And the last one is stay in touch. Stay in touch, meaning if you cannot visit physically, at least make a call. Right. In the olden days, if you cannot make a visit, then you send a letter. Right? You send a postcard. Right? I had a friend whom I sent a postcard to congratulate him because he finished his exam, I remember. He finished his exam, so I sent him a card to congratulate him. And you know what happened? He sent me a reply. He sent me a reply to the congratulatory card that I sent. Then I thought his reply had some questions, so I answered. And he replied again. Even though I didn't ask any question, he replied. So I asked another friend, hey, why this guy always right? Oh, he is always like that. The moment you start, he will never stop. So he stays in touch all the time, right? Which is good. But sometimes it is too much, right? When it is too much, no. The question is moderation. In moderation, right? You don't go visit people every day. You visit him maybe once a month. If once a month is too much for him, make it once in 2 months. Otherwise, call him, right? And the last one, he says here, is something about the sisters. He said, a brief advice to my sisters. This is from the author, Abu Gudda. Specific advice to my dear Muslim sisters: if you want to visit your relatives or your Muslim sisters, carefully select the day and the hour of your visit and its duration. Carefully select. There are appropriate and inappropriate times for paying visits, even to relatives and friends. Do your best to make the visit a nice, brief and pleasant one. Nice, brief and pleasant. Always do that. Yeah. Inshallah, we shall be happy the other side, because that's more important than here. Avoid turning it into a boring, wearisome, inquisitive and lengthy visit. Avoid it. Instead, it should be a visit whose purpose is to rekindle and nourish an old friendship or kinship. The visit is desirable if it is short and considerate, and it is undesirable if it is long and tedious, during which conversation moves from being purposeful and valuable to being aimless and useless. And that's where the trouble starts. The honorable follower Muhammad ibn Shihab al-Zuhri said, when a meeting becomes too long, Satan increasingly participates in it. Shaitan will be there. You know, beautiful thing, I mean not beautiful, but interesting thing about shaitan, you know, we humans, we do not know what another human thinks. What is in your mind, I do not know. People say, I can read your mind. No, it's a bluff. You cannot read the mind of others. But the shaitan can. How? I tell you a proof. I have a friend who was a student of Allahyarham Datuk Harundin, a student to study about Islamic medicine, right? So the first thing Ustaz Harun taught was, he asked us to recite Al-Fatiha on the first day only one time after every waktu, on the second day twice after every waktu, on the third day 3 times, until the 7th day 7 times, right? So when he was already reciting that, on the 3rd day or so, he was a bachelor at that time, and he was sleeping in his room in his house, and his house is not a completely brick house. It is half brick and half wooden, and then at the top there are some wire gauze, wire gauze. So when he was sleeping, suddenly he woke up in the middle of the night and found the ceiling is only 1 foot away. The ceiling is 1 foot away. Ustaz Harun was saying, if you do this, that means if you recite the Fatiha alone, you will be tested. And this was the test. So this guy was actually being lifted by the jinn, 1 foot away from the ceiling. So when he looked at the ceiling, he knows that it's very high up. So he said, he was talking. He said, please put me down slowly. So slowly the body came down until the bed, on the bed. So he was put on the bed. So he was okay. So he felt very safe. The second night, again he woke up and he found his eye was only about 1 foot away from the ceiling. And this time it was not still, he was moving around. Around like that. Then he said, when he reaches the bed, he said, okay, now he stop and put me down slowly. And the fellow stopped and put down slowly. Alright. The third night was more interesting. So he went up, same thing happened, he was going in a circle, right? Then he was thinking, this time he didn't say anything, he was thinking, if this guy brings me to the switch, I am going to turn out the light, because I want to see how he looks like, because it was dark, you see. Immediately he was brought to the switch. In other words, that creature knew what you were thinking. Immediately he went to the switch. And then when he extended his hand to switch on the light, the guy pushed him away. And then he brought him near again. When he brings me near, I will switch on. So he brought him near. The moment he wanted to switch, he brought him away. Then finally he said, if you are really, then he talked to him, if you are really something, if you are really powerful, get me out of this place, not through the door. Right? Not through the door, get me out of this place and put me on the hill of Bangi. He's in Bangi. Put me on the hill there. So this time, the challenge was too great, because he's quite a big sized fellow. It's impossible to bring him out of the room without going through the door. So brought him down, and then no more. But what I'm trying to say is that the moment he wished that he can be brought to the switch, this guy immediately brought him. In other words, he can know what you are thinking. That is why it is possible for him to whisper to you. The whispering is possible because he knows exactly what you think. The moment you think of something, he knows how to bring you to something else, Especially when you are praying. Why? Two reasons. Number one, when we are praying, we always want to focus. We always want to focus. We try to focus. Right? It is that particular time that it is so easy for him to whisper to you. So easy, because you are so focused, very easy to disturb you. That is why. That's number one. Number two, the more he whispers, the more he disturbs you, then your prayer, right, will not be complete. The prayer, after you have completed your every prayer, it is being folded. The prayer itself is being folded and sent to Allah. Every prayer. Right? So when it is folded, if it is a complete prayer, there are no holes. But when your thoughts are everywhere, the folded prayer has a lot of holes. So you don't want your prayer to go to Allah with a lot of holes. I think so far so many holes, because we never think about it. But let's think about it seriously. Make sure that the prayer that goes to Allah that we have done has no holes. How to patch up the holes? Focus. Focus, focus. With practice, inshallah. Wallahu a'lam.